You missed my whole irrational description of why I don't like cheese, but I don't really have one.
No, we're gonna still talk about it.
Okay,
You're not getting out of this conversation.
that's okay. I've had this conversation far too many times with people.
We had this conversation 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
We did.
Did we?
Yes.
I don't even remember anymore.
Oh,
'Cause every
God.
time I say something like this, people look at me like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, you probably. I don't know.
Probably.
Whatever.
I am gonna ask you some things that I know that we've talked about too in the
Okay.
past, but now it's gonna get recorded.
That's fine.
Welcome to Talk with.
Jenna, aka the Muscle Mommy.
Todd Akers, physical therapist, also on Instagram at todd.akers.ifbbpro
And
and apex_rehab_PT. That's my business account, so you can follow all my rehab stuff on that.
Vanessa at That Girl Squats or at trail.of.champions. And today we have a very
Todd
special guest.
Akers.
Myself.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. Happy to be here. It's exciting.
So he just dropped some news on me, and I don't know if we can be friends.
Oh.
No.
Funny thing is, that's usually how this conversation starts. So I'm used to this already. Not worried in the slightest.
Honestly, I know a lot of people that are like lactose intolerant, so it's fine. But you are not lactose
I
intolerant?
am absolutely not. No.
So Todd says he doesn't like cheese.
Cheese is not for me.
Dun, dun, dun.
What? Like, why?
Good question that I don't have a good answer for, other than I don't like it. Now, I have a thought. I absolutely despise American cheese.
Okay.
Don't even put that around.
We have had that conversation.
So I
before.
think it probably comes from that.
Okay, but have you ever had like
But-
fresh made cheese?
I have. In fact, in high school, I was in because you just want to be lazy and take easy classes. What is the one where you cook everything? Yeah,
Yeah,
cook that one.
home
Oh
ec.
yeah, it was fantastic. And there was one day where they decided, you know what we're gonna do today? 25 different cheeses. You guys get to try all of these. And I was like, get me out of this.
See, I'm not a big cheese fan either. So I totally relate because that sounds disgusting. I mean, I'll have a string cheese every now and again.
I mean, I used to eat a lot of string cheese as a kid. I used to eat Cheese Whiz straight out of the can. So yeah, I think it's all of these endeavors as a child where now I'm like, oh, this just doesn't sound good anymore.
Oh, that sounds
It's like,
disgusting.
no, thank you. So no cheese for me.
See, I relate. I'm not a big cheese fan.
So you said that you don't mind it in things that it's supposed to be in.
Okay, so here's what I learned.
like
And I
cheeseburgers?
learned this far later in life. Then you should probably know, but I'm going to admit it anyways. I was probably mid-30s already, right?
Oh.
Bodybuilding, and this is what brought it up. Really, my palate changed during bodybuilding when I got into it because you'll eat anything.
Yeah.
Why not, right? And so I came to a realization, I'm not a chef. These people are. And so if there's cheese in a recipe, I should probably just leave it. And I remember the first day that I actually left it on a burger. And I was like, this was a good choice. All right, my life has changed now. It doesn't mean I like cheese. It doesn't mean I'm choosing it. In fact, most times if I'm just getting a regular burger, I'll go for ones without cheese.
Same.
However, if it's like an actual, what I'll call quote unquote recipe, yeah, leave it in. It's fine.
Okay.
It's supposed to be there for a reason. So,
Enchiladas?
yes, but don't put too much. Don't put, because I am like liquid. If you can really, if the cheese is, I don't want anything to do with it. Don't ask me to eat queso. You guys can have all queso in the world. I want nothing to do with that.
See, you're like my son
Lasagna?
and you're like my daughter. Cheese everything. And
Oh, I don't put cheese on it. I literally just have string cheese.
But you like cheese like lasagna?
Yeah.
Like we had lasagna last night and my daughter was like, oh, she was like, it's so good. My son's going,
Yeah.
because of all the cheese.
And too much cheese. Hands down, too much cheese. And the different cheese textures too. No, thank you.
Pizza?
The fact, oh yeah, heck yeah, pizza all day long.
It belongs on it though.
Yeah, it does.
Quesadillas?
Yeah, but
I
again,
heard the Spanish. You really rolled there. Say it again.
No.
I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day who
That
she
girl
spoke
squats.
multiple languages, and I was giving her a hard time because she was talking to me, and all of a sudden her Spanish accent would drop, and I was like, "What are you saying?" Like, hold on, it's like, go back to that. So I was giving her a hard time. It was really funny though.
Yes.
Subtitles, please. Are you gonna subtitles people?
Yes.
Am I what? Say that?
Yep. Clearly.
Like, hold on, what?
Are you subtitles? Do you
Oh,
like subtitles?
No, no, actually, I need them apparently, but I wasn't sure after our conversation. Is this still English or not? Are we stepping out? No.
Yeah. I am. I have to.
I love subtitles.
See why?
Especially when I'm listening to songs. I go straight to lyrics so I can see what's being said.
Sometimes I
do
can't
you-
hear.
Yeah.
Okay, understandable. So why don't you just turn it up?
Because then I get yelled at for having it too loud.
Okay, understandable.
Yeah.
Fair point then. Okay, that discussion makes sense.
Sometimes they talk too fast. I don't process properly.
Yeah. Or it's like they have a thick accent where I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
like-
see, no,
like
with-
Cockney slang and
Louisiana.
no, leave it. That's part of the fun.
Creole.
You're not really sure what they're saying, so you got to guess a little bit.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
then
that's
I'm
the enjoyment.
lost. And I'm like, what has happened?
That's-
How did we get here?
Make
Yeah.
it up.
And then I have to rewind, hit subtitles, and watch again.
yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, now I'm caught up.
I also watch a lot of Korean dramas, which we've talked about.
Yes.
And so sometimes the subtitles will actually give it more context. Like, so it will still be in English.
Right.
I don't watch anything not in
Is it
English.
voiceover?
Yeah. All dubbed.
Oh,
See,
no,
those-
no, I have to subtitle.
Yeah. So then that's what I'm saying is that it gives it more context. And also, I don't have an issue with the lips not matching. But the funny thing is, I do have an issue with the lips don't match and it is in English and it is like the native language. I'm like, this makes my head
How is
hurt.
it even possible?
What?
It's in English. It's their native language, and the lips don't match.
Yeah, it's very possible
Why would
because of
they
the
not
way that
just-
the way that they sound mix it.
No, no, no,
Sometimes it's
it's-
just a little bit late.
Oh, okay. So it's just like it's
They're
almost like a
speaking
production error. Oh, they're speaking.
No, the production era.
Okay,
error.
yeah. That okay, yeah. That bugged
Oh,
me
so
too.
they're speaking English?
It's
Or
like
they're speaking Korean and they voice over?
No. I'm saying if it is, I said I don't have an issue if it's a voice dubbed and then the lips aren't matching because
Oh.
it's a different language that they're speaking.
Okay.
I do have an issue if it's an English show with English people
Not the.
and the voices don't match the mouths because it's that latency that confuses my head because I can see it happening,
Yep.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you're watching video on the internet
When
and
they do the
it gets out of
reels.
sync.
Yes.
And you're just like,
When they try to do the reels and they voice over,
Mhm.
and I'm like, it's off
Yeah.
by a split second. You got to
Yeah.
redo it.
Yeah. So I think it's that thought of I already went into this anticipating it being off. Right? Whenever it's a Korean or
You're
dubbed.
prepared.
oh,
Yeah,
I see what you're
prepared.
saying.
But that actually segues perfectly into my question
Oh,
for
boy.
you.
Here we go. It starts already.
Pain.
Okay.
That's it.
Question.
There's a question there.
Yes, no. The question was how did you word it?
I want to know your thoughts on when somebody's in pain and they come to you
Mm-hmm.
and they say they're in pain.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle this? I want you to tell the audience how you handle it
Okay.
because I've been treated by Todd before
Uh-huh.
several times, and so whenever I
That's
go
not
to
the question that I wanted to
oh,
go
that
to.
wasn't it.
But we will go into that question next.
Oh, okay.
The question was, do you think people can anticipate or like lessen the pain just by like expecting it?
100%. So actually, the definition of pain includes, and it's very important that it includes expectations and experiences. It is not simply a physical event. Pain science research, man, the last 20 years has exploded. And there's been, if I think of some, we'll call them case studies, but they've gone even further than that, specifically off the top of my head. Man, I cannot remember this guy's name now. He's a really funny Irish guy. But he has taken live case studies where he's had people with chronic back pain. You know, we graded on the scale 0 to 10. That's a really easy way to do it. Who, you know, ranking 8, 9, 10, some people even saying it's above that, which then you start to question, how can I give you a scale to 10 and you say it's more than that? That tells you that there is an emotional experience occurring, because that doesn't fit in the parameters I've given you. So you've attached emotion to it because you want me to understand something you're feeling in that case, which is fine. That's just important for us to consider when that comes up. But anyways, this gentleman, very smart, very high in the pain science research world, literally did live case studies where he had people with chronic back pain come in, sit in front of him, and simply educated them on what was going on in their back, what this meant, all of this stuff. And then they re-rated their pain afterwards, and all of them had all might be a little excessive. I don't know exactly. It was statistically significant that most of them had a drop in their pain level. They didn't do anything. They just sat there and they just talked and were educated on what was actually going on, and we saw a decrease. That just further confirms a point that when we get into these experiences, the mechanical piece of it is just a very, very small piece. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't start there, but it has not lived there. So there's a whole wide range of expectations and experiences. An argument sometimes that I give people to help understand a little bit is when you think about, because I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I've worked with generations of people and families and asked deep questions with things. There is likely not a single person, definitely not that I've ever run into, but maybe that not even exists, we'll just say in this country. I'll just speak for this. That's all I have experience with, but has not heard somebody say, I have a bad back, right? And that doesn't mean anything. What does that even mean? There's no definition to that. It doesn't mean anything. But the more somebody has heard that, the more expectation that they have that is possible. So if I do X, all of a sudden I'm going to have a bad back like my dad did. Well, my dad did because my grandpa did. My grandpa did because he talked about his grandpa having it. And so it's just a huge
Generational curses.
It's really interesting. It does in fact work, but it works like that. There's with just about anything in our families, if you think about it. While there are some people that shift, a lot of what we learn, generally speaking, is just passed down through experience. There is an example that I tell people, which blows my mind. Unfortunately, it's a very negative example of this kind of thing. But where I used to work out in West Texas for several years, I ran into people that I would treat and came to find out there were multi-generations of people in the family that had actually never worked. They lived off government assistance. Every person, I'm talking like 20 family members, multi-generations all the way through. And while there may be reasons for that, it's a really interesting thing to consider on what that means as far as how we pass down what our ideals are and what's going on. And to not go off on too much of a tangent, pain works the exact same way. It's an experience, it's an emotion, and it's an expectation.
So there's like Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which is very similar to that, right? Like you can kind of force them into thinking that they have these illnesses.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's a lot of conditions where, I'm going to get on a little soapbox here. Hopefully, maybe a rant. We'll see. Depends on how much you guys get me fired up. But if you get me fired up, it'll go. The words we say as practitioners are excessively important in how people feel because it sets fears and expectations. And I'll give just one example because so many people have heard this. And anytime I hear this from somebody, I go soft into them first and have a conversation. I judge what they're going to give me feedback with. And then if they're receptive, I go hard and I rant at them and I start really talking about it. If you've been in orthopedic, let's just say you have knee issues, this is bone on bone, right? You've got a bone on bone in your knee. Okay. And I ask them, some of the first things I ask questions like this are, what do you think that means? So I just ask people, what do you think that means when they say that? And the descriptions I get from people are horrendous. It's crazy. I mean, so much that like a lot of times, like the thing I'll use to describe it is people literally picture like if you have your knuckles and you put your knuckles together and your knees doing this.
Yeah.
Like that is not it at all. Not it at all.
I mean, that's what you think though. That's
That's
what I
right.
think, right?
Yeah.
Like I think bone on.
But it's not it.
Bone.
It's not it at all.
What is
What
it?
it means is you have a decreasing in your joint spacing, which is in fact a degenerative condition. Yeah. And there are varying degrees of it. And yes, I have seen conditions where it quite literally is bone on bone. It's definitely more significant and it definitely presents differently. The average person, significantly, when they're told that is not what's occurring. It means they have decreased joint space.
This reminds me, just like a side note, reminds me of David Goggins. David Goggins, now I can't remember the specific tendon, but after he was a marathoner and very hard on his body, elite, one of the most elite people I think will ever exist on the face of the planet that we know of. But he finally had to go get surgery. And when he went to go get surgery, the doctor was like, I have no clue how you have been doing this. Like, this is completely calcified.
Mm-hmm.
And you should be in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
But because it's Goggins and because of how he's wired.
I also think that he's a sadist.
So here's the
Oh,
thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Is his expectations of what was occurring. Think about that. So most of the time,
Yeah.
Sorry.
He likes to be in pain.
I wonder if he, yeah.
Yeah.
but I
I'm
bet
so
you he
curious.
wasn't. See, that's the thing. So now we think about this mechanically. These things typically happen. I'll give you a perfect case study. Very slow over time. Our body is extremely resilient. If it wasn't, we would not live. We would not survive as a human species if our body was not resilient. It will heal, it will adapt, and it will function just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Until you get a toothache. That's like the worst.
Or a paper cut. No.
It's all over. Game over. Done. I'm calling in sick today. Paper cut.
Yeah.
Well, that was like the reason why we talked about this was because we were talking about boob job and how other people react or don't react to it, and how some people will kind of like, oh my God, this is the worst pain I've ever been through, blah, blah, blah. But they've also had children. They've also had all these other things. But they also, there's other factors like me. I've never really gotten any types of surgeries or anything, but I do have a very high pain tolerance, and it was not that bad,
Yeah.
Well, but I went in with that expectation of it hurting.
That's what I think the difference is. Now, who knows? There's any number of variables can be involved. Could there be different things that need to be done, different muscles, hundreds of variables. But your expectations of something will drastically change the outcome. Now, does it mean all of a sudden it won't hurt? Well, no, of course not. You actually mechanically had an issue.
Yeah. Something
done. It is likely to hurt. How much may very highly be related to what you expected the outcome of.
Mm-hmm. There's also like a genetics study about how certain people can tolerate pain more than others too, right?
And I know I came across a study a while ago that 25% of your mental toughness is inherited.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
like 25%. Now the rest of it is shaped by your environment and your mentality. Like you can shape it, but 25 is inherited.
That's interesting. I would, and that would make sense because I believe there's a significant amount of it's interesting. I can't quote the credibility of this. It was just a single post on Instagram from somebody who posts very short things about research studies, essentially like not even an abstract, it's like very tiny. But it was the fact that if a mom weight trains while she is pregnant, then, and I didn't look deep into it, so I don't know if it had to do with before also, or if just during. It was stated as just during, but that seems a little strange to me. I feel like it might be like a history of, but again, I don't know for sure. Then the child is more likely to have a higher propensity to be able to build muscle. And so while I don't know the credibility of that, so who knows, it was just a simple post, but it might speak to exactly kind of what you're thinking about how we shape who we are as people. I mean, everything we're built from is coded in our DNA. It just tracked out. Now we can choose to do things with that,
right,
or not, but there are maps for these things.
Well, I'll let you know in about 20 years because I didn't work out with Adeline. And then after her, I worked out, like I started working out when I was 14.
Yeah.
But it was not consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So I would walk when I was pregnant with Adeline and like casually bike ride, but I didn't do anything much physical. But with Elijah, I was pregnant when I was pregnant the entire time. 3 days before I had him, I was back in the gym 12 days later.
Be interesting.
Yeah.
See the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have 23andMe?
No.
No. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist.
I do too, but I already did it like way before all the shit started coming out and stuff because they started selling like data. But they have one of the reports is like if you are prone to be more of a muscular build or if you're like of an elite athlete or not. I don't know. But there's like a couple of other like fun things that they have in here. Do I believe all of them? No, because there's one specifically It says you are less likely to consume caffeine. And I said, ah. That's a lie.
Proven wrong.
Ooh, let's talk about caffeine real quick.
Okay.
All right, Todd, let's tell everybody what you used to do. Your caffeine
Oh
intake.
boy. We'll just label it as disgusting. We'll just label it as that. I give people, so I mean, it was thousands of milligrams a day. And just because it didn't do anything, just because, right? Speaking of, I've also heard there are, you can detect on your genes whether you are sensitive to caffeine or not.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So maybe I just wasn't because it did nothing. Anyways, the most disgusting story I tell people, there's no reason I did this. I don't know why. Is I decided I was going to study. I was in graduate school. I was perfectly fine. I was awake. It didn't wake me up anymore, anyways. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I took a shaker, so 25 ounces. I put in 2 scoops of pre-workout, definitely stem pre-workout, and then filled up the rest of it with as much energy drink that would
Was
fit
this
in
like NO Explode?
I don't even know which one I used.
Jacked.
Right.
It's so funny. Speaking of thinking back,
So
I
wait,
do remember like
Probably 600 milligrams of caffeine plus an energy drink.
it had to have at least been like probably 1,500 plus milligrams of caffeine just right there.
Wild.
Why?
No, I said wild.
Yeah, well, no, I know, but yeah, why did I choose that? I don't know.
Well,
Crazy. Oh,
I
Did
saw
it make
this.
you feel good?
no, it did nothing.
It
just tasted interesting. That was about it.
How often would you
I
do
slept
that?
fine that night. Not that was no, that was a little excessive.
Okay.
But I mean, it was. Let's just say I decided at a certain point my caffeine intake was actually slightly becoming a financial burden, and I could probably save money, a noticeable amount of money, if I stopped, because I would buy multiple packs of the 10 packs of the monsters per week.
With the sugar.
No sugar.
Is it sugar-free?
I was already off sugar a long time. Yeah, I'd been when I started kind of getting into the bodybuilding stuff. I mean, I started when I was 22. Really, is when I kind of wow, all in with that. So that was actually a little bit right before graduate school, but not that I didn't drink caffeine then. But even at that point, I was kind of like, okay, these things probably I don't need, but caffeine's fine. You know, we'll smash this anyway. So it all went sugar free.
I saw this video. It was a professor recording the students walking in. And so the entire time he goes, all right, all these, he would ask each student walking in, how many cups of coffee did you have today? And the first 10, none. He goes, looks at the clock. He goes, all right, class is starting right now. Every single one after that had coffee.
Mm-hmm.
All the ones that were caffeine free were on time. All the ones that had coffee were late. And I was like, that is interesting.
But do you think that they already know that they're lagging and hungover and doing all these things, which is the reason why that they needed caffeine to get through?
I don't know. The
The
people the way I correlated was caffeine free people are better at time management.
No.
Well, yeah, I'd argue you got to be careful because you just said correlated. Correlation and causation are not the same.
Okay.
Mm.
So the way I looked at it was the people that were not drinking caffeine were better at time management.
Which you might not be wrong, but if you get a big enough sample size, does that still hold?
Yeah.
Correct.
Don't know. All we know is was a very interesting thing. This professor had likely seen something like this before. So there's some kind of
Bias.
but not in a bad way. Sometimes you say bias, people think negative. He had seen some kind of correlation with this in the past. Now, it just may have been he knew his class also.
So wait, I just said correlation. Correct me. So what would it be? Correlation or causation?
It's a correlation because we don't know if it causes that. The only way we know if it actually causes something is we would have to study and see a direct link. This goes as far as
Which always concludes with
we need more research.
research.
Always. Almost always.
Always.
So you've got to take that. But it's important to know these things because, oh, here we go. I'm gonna get on soapbox again. The things we say and how we relay information significantly matters. It matters so much because if we're talking to people and we present information, we'll say, oh, he said there was a cause. Then that means I am now going to assume if I'm not well educated on the topic, that means if I stop drinking caffeine, I should be better at time management because it's a cause. Right?
Correct.
But what we know when we say it like that, we're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Time management is about a life thing, right?
Right.
It's not about this thing. And it goes, the example I use with the causation thing for a lot of people, which blows people's minds, is We really only know at this point smoking is it doesn't cause cancer. There's a correlation to cancer. There's a high correlation, but we still don't know if it truly causes. Most of these things we don't truly know if they cause. We don't necessarily have a direct link. We continue to study it, and the more research you build, the causation goes up. And then we get to decide when we think it becomes a causation effect. But even at that, if your correlation is 80%, okay, that's a pretty high correlation. So likely if you make that change, you are far less likely to have said condition. But the simple way you can put that is you have to look at extremes. So if you look at extremes of the situation, so let's just use smoking, okay? Because that's a pretty extreme one. There are people that have never smoked and still get lung cancer.
Yep.
So therefore, smoking in itself doesn't necessarily guarantee you get cancer or guarantee you do not get lung cancer. There are many factors involved
Yeah, because I've also heard about people that smoke their entire lives,
and never have a problem.
drink their entire lives.
Live till they're 100.
I swear it's gonna be my uncle. I swear he drinks and he is a party. He parties like he's 20.
Yeah.
I'm not the extreme stuff too. And he's in his 60s. And I'm like, and me and my dad are always talking like he's gonna outlive us all. Because he's so like, so it's interesting. But so one end or the other. But you always hear smoking causes
I
cancer
do.
when it should be smoking is correlated to
Correct.
cancer.
But you then consider, and so this is where, and I don't mean any of this negative. I don't mean to change any people's opinions. I do not think smoking is a good thing.
No, right.
There is no benefit to it other than what people will relay as a psychological benefit.
Correct.
Well, you could argue nicotine has some different things that you might be able to, but we won't go now. But if you are going down the route of you think things get caused, then you have a skewed perception of what's actually occurring. And the importance to know, while you need to know what's occurring so you can make your own choices appropriately for it. And so kind of what I mean is if I assume that there's a direct link, then that means in order for me to fix said problem, I do the opposite of, right? I'll give you an example from what I do in my practice all the time.
I've got a good one.
Okay, go for it first.
Too many calories make you cause weight.
Gain weight?
Gain
Gain weight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then people go to the extreme and stop eating to
Mhm.
lose weight, which is not healthy.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes they may hold on to weight.
Correct. Because they're in
Not in all
starvation.
situations, but in some
Right.
situations.
But at some
Yeah.
point, yeah.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of this stuff with the human body. There's so many factors. So just I like people to know that causation and correlation are not the same. It doesn't mean it's not important, but there's a lot more typically to the conversation. And that's where I start having conversations with people about the question is always asking why. I'm of a very, very strong believer that as a society, we need to significantly improve our critical thinking. And that doesn't mean,
Better.
but that doesn't mean you have to go become more educated. That doesn't mean anything like that. Simply in my head, all that means is when you're presented with information, ask why. Just ask why.
You did that to me the other
Yeah.
week when I was talking about my elbow because I have tendonitis right now. And you were like, do you know why this is happening? And I sat there and you were like, it's okay if you don't know. And I was like, because I'm doing the same things that you told me not to do.
Yeah.
And you were like, yep.
Now I could have just said that, right? I could just tell people and give people information. But when you come to conclusions in yourself, I'm a believer, as I think many other people will be, that gives you the insight on do I or do I not want to make a change?
Well, you're a teacher.
I hope.
You are, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you are. You teach.
Yeah.
You don't just tell.
Yeah,
Which is that you educate. Like every time I walk away, I leave rehab from you knowing more than I went in.
minus all the blank stares I get from you. I know when to stop talking because she does this.
And she's checked out.
And I look to try and bring her back around a little bit. It doesn't always happen, but that's okay.
ADHD.
So something that two things from that, and then also I'm going to go back to another thing. Two things.
you talked about correlation and causation. That is another reason why it is so important for like marketers to use information and then also put their spin on it to get attention.
Uh-huh.
So they're like, well, this correlation says this, but they're exploiting that, you know?
Absolutely. You're cherry picking information to get your goal across. Again, here, this is probably the largest reason why I say we need to be better at critical thinking, because that is somebody, not that I'm saying talking bad about this person. Business, things like that have a lot to do with influence. I'm going to use influencing people. I'm not going to use manipulating, because if we use the word manipulating, we think of it negative, even though that's generally the goal, right? Now, if you're genuine in the things you're doing, really, if you're selling somebody something, you are simply trying to help them achieve their goal with something you have to offer. So it's really the idea of you're trying to show somebody, hey, you've got this problem. There is, in fact, a solution for you. Let's discuss this. And you can decide if this solution is appropriate. I just happen to be the expert on this solution. And so that's kind of what it is. So when you go to the influencing people, when you ask why about critical thinking, in my head, the most important part is you're going to start to consider or think about bias. Where is this person coming from when they give me this information? What are they trying to get me to do, or to get me to believe, or to get me to feel? And that is it's a very scary thing, in my opinion. Not to say that just because somebody says something, you can't choose to believe them. But in my head, you need to know where it's coming from. Doesn't mean they're bad people. They could be your best friends telling you something. And you just want to say, okay, where is this information coming from? And then you can choose what to do with it. I probably had this conversation with you before, Jenna. I view our friendships or our acquaintanceships, all of these things in a similar way. We're going to run into a lot of people in our life. And you have an opportunity to be hurt from a lot of different scenarios. And kind of the way I phrase it is the fact that if you go in understanding what this scenario is, if you ask yourself, why is this occurring? This person I'm talking to, they're giving me this information, and you understand what the relationship is, it doesn't mean you have to dislike somebody. It doesn't mean you have to like somebody more, but you're less likely to be taken off guard and going like, I can't believe this would happen, right? No, because sure, you can be like, oh man, that's a bummer. But if you understand, like if I'm interacting with people, I distinctly know, maybe that I'm a little weird sometimes when I think about this stuff too, but I distinctly know the people I would call my good friends. This also has to do with because I'm a pretty serious introvert. So it has become very, very clear in my life where certain people fall. Not that anybody is bad,
Right.
because bad people, as you guys probably know, somebody I don't consider a good person, I usually just don't even interact with. That's my way of saying, if you're not a good person, I don't really want to deal with you. But there's levels to all these different people, and I consider, when I'm interacting with somebody, what is it now? It's not like I'm processing all this in my head, right? It doesn't work like that. It's not some kind of computer thing, but it's just for me to understand that when I get information or when I interact with somebody, what's the situation that's occurring as far as that relationship goes? How much credit have I decided I'm going to put on this? How much have I decided they actually want to hear what I have to say? Or do they just want to have a conversation, not a discussion? Who is this and what's going on? So that way I know the scenario essentially that I'm presenting myself into. But that's why critical thinking, asking yourself why, and then thinking about why, helps you build an understanding of why you think the way you do. There's actually a term for that. We call it metacognition. It's about thinking about how and why you think the way you do.
Well, you're a very rational human being.
Overly, unfortunately.
You're very rational. Very, very rational. And not everybody has that capability. Because a rational human being goes, like, the older I get, the more rational I become. Whereas before me, like, if I recognize somebody was a bad person, I'd be like, I can change them. It's like I told Todd the other day. I was like, man, I was pulling up here and I saw a crackhead and I thought, man, if he wasn't a crackhead, he'd be good looking. And then I went, I can change him.
Have you Have
I
you
can save him.
have you seen those like games where they're like hobo or like hipster?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, and so they just
Oh
like
my God.
that's what it reminded me.
Oh
Sick.
man.
But you're very rational. So like it's a rational thought is like, hey, if you're a bad person, you got to go there. Right.
I try to, yes.
Yeah. Like I'm
yeah.
not gonna be ugly towards you. I'm
Right.
just not gonna interact. If you
Yeah.
approach me, it's gonna be cordial, but
Right.
it's gonna be limited.
I have no reason to have hate or
Right.
anything. I don't have time for that.
Right. But
Yeah.
I
I
got too
have,
much going on in my head.
based
just-
on my interaction with you, I have discerned that this can't come closer.
Absolutely. This is where the relationship stops. We're good. No problem.
Be bad.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it can't change.
Sure.
Absolutely does not mean things can't change in the future.
Yep.
When my opinions or my thoughts or my feelings change about it.
Based on your
Absolutely.
actions.
Yep.
So I know we've both had these conversations very separately, but I just had this thought because you said you like spurred it. People that have voices in their head. There are the people that don't have it,
Yep.
and there are the people that do. So like inner dialogue. I know you have it.
You better believe it.
I know you have it. I have it. I think it's wild that somebody does not.
That there are
People
I can't
don't?
Yeah.
I can't remember the number now, but I saw
Wait,
again.
what? People really
okay,
don't?
yes.
Yeah.
Now again, here I want to be honest with where I saw this
Are they
information.
avoid?
It was I don't know. I don't know. That's that I cannot fathom
Are
that.
they robotic?
So
Mhm.
also don't understand because they've been asked and they say they just hear sounds, just like we hear in our ear. And I'm like, hold on, what? Like I can't go a second essentially without feeling like I have a narrator in my own head.
I was
Think-
talking
oh,
with myself out loud on the way here.
Yep, there's some people that don't have
Is
that.
that weird?
No.
No, but I wasn't just here. I was like literally talking
No.
out loud to myself.
See, the way I get away with that is it's no
I'm
different,
alone by myself all
but
the
I
time.
talk to my dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was like on my way because sometimes I get so up in here and I'm like, okay, I got to hear this come out so that I can process. And then I have literally a conversation with myself.
No, that's fine.
It's kind of like journaling,
So I think maybe
verbal.
your feeling about the crackhead you saw, maybe it'll work.
So, are you guys phone people?
Am I what?
Phone.
Phone. Oh God.
With the right person.
Do you do voice notes?
Never. Never.
All text.
If possible, yes.
Yeah.
It's weird because I think it has, for me, it's definitely about like initiating a conversation with somebody. Because I'm an introvert, it feels like I'm pulling my teeth out like hard, unless there's a very specific reason to have it. I know that it's really weird. I can't even explain it, but I will avoid initiating conversations. I mean, you guys have seen me walk through the gym. Like I've gotten, did I tell you the story? I had to teach myself a strategy because I used to run physical therapy clinics. And so I had to teach myself a strategy to kind of help bring like sort of want to use like a better atmosphere for all the clients in there, more like a family community atmosphere. Because the way I believe in physical therapy was like some people think about it like you go in private rooms and you do this. I was very against that. In my opinion, now sometimes it had to happen if there's specific things. But I was much more, this is a community. We're all going through experiences. Let's learn off of and work off. Let's be friends. But me as an introvert, I see people, I'm like, no thanks. I'm going to go over here and I'll be good, right? Until there's a specific reason that I need to interact with somebody. And this is what confuses people who don't know me super well at first, is you'd never guess that about me. Because when I have a reason to interact, super easy. But I've had to teach myself that.
I get it.
I've had to teach and I have little strategies that now I don't think about them. I've just, watched information on YouTube or things like that, and given me little pieces that now they just incorporate naturally into my life.
Googled how to like people.
You'd be surprised. Okay.
Your Google's
Not even, you'd be very surprised. Actually, one spot I got something from, I believe, don't quote me on this. I believe I was watching Ryan Reynolds be interviewed on one of the Tonight shows. And I think it was him. If not somebody very similar to him, the same type of personality, that type of thing, right? You'd think he's like the most charismatic person in the world. And they were saying that when they have conversations with people, in order to have good conversations, what they had to teach themselves is when they got asked a question, they can't just answer a question. They have to give a little bit of extra information. So if you guys have ever asked me a question and you notice I start talking extra, it's because that's my way of cueing you to pick up on something I just said to maybe we can have a conversation. So it's like I'm trying to shove it and like, because my answer to most questions would be just boom, boom, done, right?
That's funny
That's
because
it.
anytime I approach you for a question, I prepare. I'm like, I need 10 minutes. Because I know Todd's it's not gonna be a direct answer.
That's
Never,
well, and
ever.
that some of that also comes from depending on what you ask me.
Yeah,
Of
because
course, and especially it's something that you're passionate about and you
Yes.
want to teach.
Yes.
But I don't look at it as a bad thing. It's just like I know he's gonna explain it to me.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna learn.
And that's those things are how I get around like, and anybody that has high introvert tendencies will, a lot of this probably makes perfect sense. That's just so when I was growing up, I thought I was just shy. That's what I was always labeled. Okay, that's who I am. That's this. But something didn't ever quite feel right about that because it was always insinuated to me or the way I thought that means I don't like people. But that never felt true. And in fact, it's like you remember those whole things people would say, or like there were hypotheticals, but like, could you live in a cave by yourself for a month for $1 million, right? And I'm looking at that going, sign me up, sign me up. I'll do it 3 times, no problem here, right?
For free.
Yeah, like just to get, and that's what I thought I was.
and then COVID.
But well, what happened then a lot is actually I really learned that it. So I'd already worked on and had been learning a lot on what these things meant to me, and I was actually really concerned at that time that I had. It's going to sound like more than it actually is, but concerned that I'd actually regressed significantly as understanding how to interact with people, even as a mid-30s adult. As crazy as that sounds. It's almost like I had to reteach myself again some of these strategies that allow me to enjoy the things that I know I enjoy. Because the tricky part is how I get around small talk. I hate it. I hate
It's
it.
the worst.
We all do.
There's nothing interesting. That's not true.
No, I'm saying we
Right.
all do.
So many people are
Us
perfectly
three
fine.
specifically.
But like if there's not we're not looking to have a conversation. What are we doing?
I know, but you
Yeah.
know what? The way I look at it now is like you can provide someone value just by asking them, like, how are you? Like, and I've
100%.
noticed that with some of the older members in the gym that are single, especially ones that are single, and they come in and it's just a matter of saying, like, hey, how are you? Like, you look good, da da da. And it's a super, you know what I mean? There's not like depth to the conversation.
Yeah.
But
It's a
you
practice being
asking,
kind.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's essentially going on what I had to teach myself. That's why you guys see me wave all the time when I walk by people.
Yeah.
That's my way of I don't know how to start this conversation, but I need to acknowledge. And so that was my strategy I developed. And you'd be amazed at how my interactions with people, how many people I know, all of it significantly changed. Like as soon as I started doing that.
My workaround was looking at people and being like, treating everybody like a friend. Not necessarily that they were,
Yeah.
but treating somebody like that way, like kind of like took the edge off.
Yeah.
Like just more casual.
Can you give us 5 quick strategies? Just name them off of like that you implement to help other introverts.
Okay, so number 1 is figuring out whatever it is you need to do to start acknowledge. And so mine was waving. I didn't have to have a conversation. I don't, in fact, a lot of times I don't. So I just started waving. Sometimes that would start a conversation, but you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
Because what makes me, I don't know if us is the right word, but what makes me feel uncomfortable is the fact that I know I could and I should and I don't. And so that's
same.
my way of acknowledging that I did. And if they want to further, love it, no problem. Because now they're proceeding with a conversation. Even if this just turned into a small talk conversation, so what? They've started, they want to be there.
Yeah.
So there's one. Number 2, one of the things I do about my time. Now, this is going to make me sound crazy. I promise you, I'm only a little bit crazy, but I really like to know how long something is going to go on. And what I mean by it doesn't matter how long it is. I just need to have an idea of, because I will prep myself for a certain amount of time. And what you'll find is very closely to the end of the time I thought something was going to occur, I will shut down hard. But I can maintain whatever it is I need to maintain for a set period of time because I've I understand that this is likely what's going to occur. Now,
Social
again,
battery.
Yeah.
that's exactly how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no like specific set amount of time. It's just me understanding, and I will program, sounds like my computer here. I will adjust to the idea. I'm really not a robot, I promise. Well,
You put a magnet close to you, see if you start short circuiting.
but it helps me adjust and understand kind of what I want from myself.
Mhm.
Because the things that I would feel the worst about is not it was really how I felt about myself when I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. Because
Mhm.
that goes back to like my cave story. I love people. I love talking to people. Like I think you guys know I've already here, like probably talked your ears off already. I love doing it, but it's just about that first step
Yeah.
into it. That's the weird part. So those are two. If I had five, okay, those are two huge ones for me. Those are probably the biggest. Um, I guess the third I kind of already mentioned. When you get asked a question, give just a little bit of extra information.
Mhm.
Just a little. You don't have to tell a whole story. You don't have to do anything like that, or just ask a question back, right? Just a little bit more information. Like, have you ever done something like that? If they're talking, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Which my usual answer is nothing.
Have you ever done something like that?
Because that's a small talk question that all you're likely going to get out of me is nothing. Because if I didn't do anything specific, even if I did, sometimes there's like this strong aversion to actually saying it. It's because it still feels like small talk.
Yeah.
Right, like you mowed the lawn or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so if somebody asks you something like that, maybe you say, just give a tiny bit of I was outside a little bit and it was a really nice day. I really enjoyed being outside. And so now I just went from, let's say I mowed the lawn. That was all I did and it was fine. But it was a really nice day outside. I enjoyed being outside. And so all I did there was give you a little bit more information about how I felt, hoping that you might, who's going to relate with mowing? Well, a lot of people mow the lawn, but who actually cares about
It was a
mowing?
beautiful day.
It was.
Saturday was beautiful.
And so looking to relate to a feeling might instill a conversation a little bit more effectively, because then they may come back, oh yeah, it was, I went out to the lake. I don't know if they did anything like that, or oh yeah, I was stuck inside. I could, but who knows where it's going to go. But at least now, as an introvert, and you guys probably don't see this very much anymore, but if you think back to the beginning of when I met you guys, I'm sure you've seen this a lot, where all of a sudden a conversation stops and I'm like this.
Mhm.
Cool, nice conversation, bye. And that's what it feels like in my head. I'm like, oh God, what's going on right now? And that's just because all of a sudden, me trying to build the conversation and get something back from you, I've died essentially. Because whatever I've thrown out
Robot
hasn't come back
Game
at me.
over.
That's right. That's what it feels like. And so oftentimes, and it's really super awkward, but I will stand there for about an extra 15 seconds. And that's excessive. Probably an extra 5 seconds longer than I should, because the conversation is over and I have nothing else to say. But it doesn't feel like the conversation's over.
I feel like
So you're
I
waiting for the appropriate
That's
time
right.
to walk
Yeah.
away.
That's right.
I feel like I've always like tended to just like walk away first whenever we would have any interactions. I'd be like,
See, that's how you end a conversation. So there's another great way. Here's another step that how you can appropriately end conversation. While I'm not great at it,
I struggle with that.
there are now a lot of people are going to try and pull you in a conversation.
Mhm.
And so I'm not talking about that side of it, although there are things you can do there. I'm talking more about like when I'm feeling like I'm done, I don't have anything else to give, so I don't hit that awkward stage and feel bad about myself for getting there. It's because that's really how it is. It's like
you're
nobody
like, I'm
actually
prematurely
cares.
done with this conversation. I'm sorry.
But, like,
This
yeah, I'm
doesn't
done,
happen.
It's more about like I would try and find one last thing to say, like I don't know, like something that feels like an exit. Let's say we're talking about the nice day outside. Like, oh yeah, I hope it's one last week. I hope it's a nice day this weekend. I'd like to get outside. All right, I'll catch you later. Having, and I'm dead serious, having one little thing where I can end if the conversation feels like it's there, right? Where I can end saying something
Yeah.
and then lead that right into, okay, gotta go.
You know what I usually say? Because it's usually true, but it's also me getting out. And he gets to the restroom. And then I run off.
I was so
so often. Like that's like my scapegoat.
I was so proud of myself because I was having a conversation yesterday. Really, I was just being talked to. And my client came up, was standing there. And then I looked at the person that was talking to me and I said, hey, we're going to have to catch up later. was good to talk to you. And then I turned and left, and I was like, I did it. I did it. I've never done that. It felt so nice.
Yeah, and stuff like that is I will never say I'm good at it, but it's definitely helpful if you have a reason. It makes your life a lot easier. I think it's when you don't have a reason that, depending on who you are, it can feel a little awkward. So creating those scenarios for yourself is very helpful.
So you know the gym, right?
No, never
We-
been.
Well, we work
What
at
is
the gym
gym?
and we
What?
train at
That
the gym.
person? Jim Jeffries?
We work there, we train there, right? And so a lot of the times we walk in and you get greeted and
Mhm.
people want to talk, right? And so I was on an extreme time crunch. Like I had like an hour to get my workout done. And I was already on the gym, like, and I was like walking in, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to stop and give hugs and just be firm. Like, hey, we're gonna have to talk a little bit later. I've got a time crunch. Like I was preparing myself because I'm also
And
like,
then nobody says anything to you.
I got stopped like 4 times.
Oh.
And I had to be like, love you. I'm so strapped on time today. We'll talk later. And that was, yeah, I had to like literally prepare myself for
And
it.
you know what? The fact you say that, what's interesting, okay, here's we'll give, you asked for 5, I've only given 3, so here's one I might also throw in that. Understanding that, guess what? Nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Nobody else really cares. Nobody cares if you're going in and you're going to have a whole conversation with them, or you're like, I'm really sorry, I'm in a hurry, we'll catch up later. They don't care.
Yeah.
They just really
Shit,
don't.
not my experience.
What?
I've had people been like, you're rude. And I'm like, I'm just busy.
Yeah.
Like I'm juggling so much. Like in my head, I'm like, beep, 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 beep.
Well, I might
Like
argue.
you don't say hi to people. Like da da da. I'm like,
You can never win.
yeah,
Right,
but
there's
people,
no.
I can't people please.
So that's where, and maybe this is just my experience over your experiences, because
You're
I
a
know
man
we
versus
both
woman.
interact with people very different. Well, that's also
Yeah.
possibly true. Absolutely. Because I can never know that scenario because I will never be in that scenario. So I can't even fathom to understand that side of it. And so that's why maybe it's just me that my strategy is, if I'm doing something, I wave, and I don't even think twice. I'm still moving. My feet don't stop. Nothing stops. Nothing. I keep on going. I
Everybody
give the
knows.
nonverbal that I'm gone.
Yeah. Everybody that knows you knows to just like not necessarily approach.
What makes me sound mean?
No, but no, it's not in a mean way. It's not in a mean way. It's
You're very approachable.
you're very approachable, but there's like an aura of like when you're
It's business.
open
Yeah.
to talking versus closed off.
Yeah.
And it's okay and nobody ever takes that as offense versus Jenna, who typically always goes out of her way to say hi because she is to set precedent and expectations.
Right.
And the expectation is Todd is usually busy. Jenna is usually busy, but always talking.
I think also too the fact that you're like people don't care. That's because we're the same. We don't care when people are busy,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
right? Like I don't care.
Yeah.
'Cause
Whenever
we're so-
you over explain, I'm like, oh, okay.
It's like,
It's-
Okay.
we're
Are we
so
done yet?
forgiving.
Yeah.
Right. We're so forgiving. We give grace. We're like, whatever. You have your own life going on. We don't care. But there are people that don't have anything going on in their lives, unfortunately. And they think that you don't have anything going on in your life. So they put these like silent expectations
It's
on you.
interesting. My challenge to you might be if or when that happens again.
The next time you approach me.
Did
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Are there? Because this is also a super fascinating thing with conversation. Are there nonverbal cues you're getting from this individual is giving off that says they want to talk, compared to other people who may not be giving off anything that says they actually want to talk? They're just okay with saying hi.
I circumvent by not looking at people to pay attention if they want to talk.
Well, see,
But when I'm in a conversation, I pay attention to their feet.
that's a good way to do it. Yeah, because
Because if their feet are pointed away from you, it means that they're trying to leave the conversation.
usually that's the case. Yeah.
So I look at
there's-
feet.
I think there was I think I probably told you about her, and super fascinating stuff. So if anybody's curious about communication from a nonverbal perspective,
Body language.
yeah, Vannesa Van Edwards is a literal researcher on these things, and it will blow your mind on the things you can do to set yourself up to be successful in conversations, to build charisma, because it's another thing. Like, we assume, I'm going off on a tangent here, but this is really interesting stuff. We assume some people just have charisma, right? That's not true. all of the research has shown that actually these are skills you can develop and people will call you charismatic. It's not something somebody has or not. Some people may just develop the skills differently than others, but anybody can develop the skills.
Right.
Anybody. Because when you say, oh, you people know not to approach you. Yeah. And it used to be in the fact that people thought like they couldn't until I started opening myself up to acknowledge. And I'll give you a story. When I worked in the veterinary field for a long time, and I worked with this one girl. I'd already worked there for like a year and a half. And then somehow a bunch of us were out hanging out or something like that. And a year and a half I've worked with her. And we're talking. She's like, man, I didn't think you even liked me this whole time. And literally, she was one of the coolest people I worked with. And I was like, what? And that's just because I hadn't learned. I was younger. I was like 18 to about 21 when I did that. But I hadn't learned yet how to really, what it meant to acknowledge people. Just as a simple, like, hi type of thing. So in my head, I'm going, like, if I don't have a conversation, I'm not about to start something. I don't have anything to say. So I'm just going to go get to work. We're going to do our things, I'm not going to.
That's how I am too.
And maybe I just have like a wicked male version of an RBF. Do guys have?
Yeah,
Okay.
they
No.
do, but you
Thoughts on
don't.
that?
You definitely don't. You have always looked kind.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're approachable.
You're
But that's-
approachable. You just
That's one of the things that, like, it was really interesting when I heard that, because while that in itself did not spark me diving into any of these things, it took a lot later in a different scenario that really took me digging into what the hell does being an introvert even mean?
Mhm.
Like, I thought, again, this was my mid-30s when I probably started looking at it. It just meant I didn't like people, which is,
No.
I knew was so
Yeah.
far from the truth.
Yeah.
I knew it was so far from the
But
truth.
that's perception, right?
Yeah.
So, because a lot of people, one of my biggest pet peeves is whenever I say I'm an extroverted introvert. Very much am. And people are like, no. You can't,
What do they call
first
that?
off,
What do they call that? Ambivert?
Yeah.
Isn't that the word for it?
yeah. And I'm like, first off, you can't tell me what I am and what I'm not.
That's exactly.
That's one. But two, you guys don't know what happens behind closed doors whenever I'm in a fucking fetal position, just like, okay, I'm fine. And I literally, like, I remember I would have like almost like panic attacks before some of these events, like that I would have to go to, like my networking things,
Mhm.
where whenever I'm there, nobody has any fucking clue that I just
Uh-huh.
went through this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Currently go through it.
Yeah.
Like I'll even at these
Still.
events still, I'll be
Yeah.
standing there and I'm like, what do I do with my hands?
So speaking of that, here's like, you asked me for 5. I try not to forget stuff and
Yes.
questions. Now,
Thanks for
I may-
bringing us back
I may
in
trail
here.
off here, but that's a good one. Is when you go to an event, or doing, because this is so hard for me, stupidly hard, and I would say I am absolutely not good at it. If I
Disagree,
have a
but okay.
chance to have a focused conversation with somebody, I knock it out of the park. I can give presentations in front of large groups of people, very highly educated people. I've done that so much. But if I'm going to just a free form conversation event, I'm so bad. So what I need to know is what's going on. Generally speaking, again, I don't plan things out. What's going on? Who is going to be there? Not person wise, but let's say it's a networking thing. Business wise or
professional.
profession wise or
Yeah.
things like that. Who is best for me to start a conversation with? Do I in fact know anybody yet? Have I had previous conversations with anybody that's going to be there? Because you better believe if I have, I'm beelining. I'm gonna find them first because
Yeah.
I've got to get myself going.
Yeah.
And as soon as people gravitate towards other people having conversations, think about it at like expos, right? Nobody goes up to relatively nobody the expo booth that has nobody at.
Right.
Mhm.
But as soon as, and if you guys have worked them, as soon as a couple people come over, more come.
Yep.
All of a sudden. It's because it's
Hive mentality.
yeah, there's just there's whatever it is about that. So in those events, I try my best, and I'm still super bad at it. So if I have somebody that can like,
And I'm like the opposite. I'm like, let's go where nobody's at.
if I have
And then you
somebody
start the crowd.
that is right, but it's funny because even if that's the case, it's not about like where you are in relation. I think it's more about like the energy you have with it. And so if you appear very comfortable being like that, very likely somebody else is going to approach you because you look like there's nothing on. But however, if you did that and you look very awkward, like, oh God, what am I doing over
Yeah.
here? You won't get approached.
Yeah, too
Yeah.
many people make me, it's like too many energies.
Yeah. Well, there's also like whenever you think of like school dances, whenever there's nobody on the dance floor, and then there's those two that start it, and then everybody starts
Yeah.
going because they feel comfortable having fun.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so so understanding if you're going to events or large groups of people, just think about these things ahead of time. It sounds again very robotic, but again, going through like all the things I started learning about myself through the research and trying to figure it out is these are just skills that I myself didn't naturally have and needed to take a little bit of time developing. That's all they are.
Which really only aids in like your ability to handle the social anxiety.
Everything. It just makes everything better and easier because I remember just thinking like in high school, like, man, I was a quiet kid, but I knew dang near everybody. Everybody knew who I was. I knew everybody else, but I wouldn't say that I was friends with a significant amount of people. Very, very few amount of people. And it's just like understanding these things. I always like, why can't I just go and talk to people like X does? Why can't I just like, I feel like that's me, but why can't I? And then it was just the realization that as I started doing more research, they're just simple skills that we don't all necessarily have, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong or broken, but they are in fact skills. And if something is a skill, something can in fact be learned.
Mhm. You said it recently as far as what was it? Is it normal or is it common?
Oh yeah. Okay.
But that could be so many other things. Yeah, I know. I was actually going to cut this one out. So we've talked about that. And then another just like quick thing. Do you need to go like right now?
In a few minutes.
Okay.
I've been waiting for like
Also, I've been rambling for that long.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No,
Well,
it's
we're gonna
good.
do two.
We're gonna do two.
We're gonna
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna do two. So I'm gonna cut out.
What
But
time do you need to leave?
he was gonna. I told him we would be done
I
by
can leave.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
But my goal was to get you up by 11:30 ish. Anyways, my last thing that I was going to say is I was recently listening to a podcast about conversations.
Uh-huh.
And one of her things, and you kind of talked about it, is preparation, but not necessarily preparing for the people there, the people like stuff like that, but preparing questions. And a lot of people are scared to do that because they feel like it's so contrived or like so rehearsed.
Mhm.
But there's nothing wrong with that. We do that typically for a lot of our podcasts. This one was a little bit more like on the cuff, but
Well,
Because I asked.
he
Yeah.
did. Todd
Because you had
approached me.
mentioned some before, and I asked, like, hey, is there a specific thing? Mainly because I want to know if there is, like, these things, I can talk about this all day long, but if there's something professional occurring,
yeah,
I want to make sure I'm up to date.
Yes.
What did I ask you?
pain.
I don't remember. What did you ask?
You asked like, do I need to be prepared for anything? And I said
No,
no.
we're just gonna ask questions.
We're just
That's
asking
what you
questions. Do you want to be prepared?
said. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And you were like, no.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
I've known you long enough and have had a lot of conversations with you one-on-one, and
We knew the rapport. Like,
yeah, that I knew what I wanted to ask you that I already know that you would be prepared for. And then I also, you have your lives where I'm like, ooh, okay, I want to bring that in too.
Mhm.
So otherwise, I usually give a big long list. And then I have also realized that a lot of people don't ever read.
Why
the
would you not
list
read a
that I
list of
do.
givens?
I don't know.
Now, don't
Well,
get me wrong. I
They
don't
they're
like
scared of
lists
being
at all.
contrived.
okay, so you
Right.
did you give all 5?
No,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
did I
you
get
get
five?
5.
4.
You get 5.
Oh, I
Did?
don't know. Okay, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I don't know if I know fifth off the top of my head.
No, you did. So you said nonverbal. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
waves.
Okay, that's the one
The
I didn't
waves?
really clarify.
Yeah.
as. Okay.
2.
Oh no, that's the very first one. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was the very first one. 2 was
Probably time. Understand.
Yeah,
the
understanding
amount of time something
expectations,
is,
setting
quote unquote
expectations.
expected.
Ask
Yeah.
questions back.
Yep.
Ask
Yep.
questions back and then give a little extra.
Yep.
4th was
Come on, guys. I don't remember.
getting
I
prepared
rambled
of
so
who's
much.
there.
I
Like
think that was four. Yeah.
4th, and then you just said one
What was
last
fifth?
one.
I don't remember what that one was.
Another one would be getting a pet. Get something that like requires love. And then like you talk to Squeak.
All the
So you
time.
practice.
All the time. He just stares at me blankly, but that's okay.
Also, they're a
Squeak's
good
such a
conversation
dog.
starter in general if you're out with them.
You better believe it. The first place I go, I'm finding a dog. There you go. There's the next one.
Yeah. I think that's
Fine.
6.
Fine
Find
animal. Fine
Find a
animal.
dog, and everything will be just fine.
Yes.
What kind of dog is it? Where'd you get him?
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
But
That was great.
yeah,
Todd.
that was
Thank
yeah,
you. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Lots of good conversations.
on the next one, we're gonna have a lot more rapid fires.
Okay. Oh boy.
And
And I'll try and rapid fire answers. How's
yes,
that?
yes.
Good luck.
I make no promises. We'll just say that.
But until next time, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, drop any questions, comments, concerns, and follow.
Jenna at the Muscle Mommy.
Todd.Akers.IFBB or Apex_rehab_PT.
And that girl squats or at trail.of.champions. And until next time, I'll see you next time. Bye.